have in the studio Azubike Nwokoye. He is the program coordinator of food and agriculture at Action Aid Nigeria. Thank you so much, Azubike, for being here. And of course, we need to start from the fact that Nigeria still practices rain-fed agriculture, which actually leaves us vulnerable if you look at climate change and its impact as it directly affects agriculture. But I do know that Action Aid, you sort of are asking government at all levels really to increase the budget to about 10% just for agriculture. Talk to us how you believe this is a solution to the food insecurity that has been predicted on the country.
Okay. First of all, we need to put our money where our mouth is. In the sense that even if you look at the Nigerian economy, right now we are not earning anything from oil, but we are earning from agriculture. Agriculture is still doing, even as at second quarter of this 2022, about 23% of our GDP. Our budget, the federal budget, is less than 2%. The total agriculture budgetary allocations across 36 states and FCT, including the federal level, is about 598 billion naira if you do a calculation. And when you do that calculation against the 10%, is about 2.1% of all our investment in agriculture this year. That is allocation. The major challenge we have is expenditure, because at the end of the day, you find out that in some states, the capital component of the budget, which is supposed to impact life and livelihoods in the rural community, they might end up spending maybe 50% of the capital. Some states even do less than that. The Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, which is the CADIP, they had a lot of simulation to advise countries that put 10% in your agriculture budget so that you can achieve a GDP growth of 6% in your agriculture sector. And currently now, Nigeria is moving around 2% generally of GDP. It means that the 10% is quite important. And for us as Action Aid Nigeria, we are not only saying do the 10%, but apart from doing the 10%, what are the specific areas you need to put this investment that can impact lives and livelihood of the people? There is a large gap in extension services. Farm Demonstration Plus from our data last year shows that farm demonstration in extension is less than 6% across Nigeria. We can't survive with that as a country. 95% of our wheat production, for instance, is still being imported. And we could see how the prices of bread and other confectionaries are really gone up with. So we need to do a lot in terms of putting the money, in terms of the investment. There is gap in terms of our processing. Our post-harvest losses is about 3.5 trillion naira annually. And by the time you divide 3.5 trillion naira, it gives you about 94.5 billion. It means that each state, if you divide it among the states, is likely to be losing about 94.5 billion.
So you're saying processing is an area that we should look at?
Yes, because from the data we gathered, access to processing facilities for smallholder women farmers is just about 18% across 36 states and FCT. So there is a gap. Storage facility is less than 17%. You can go on and on. So the statistics are there. So it means that we need to do targeted spending.
Right.
And the targeted spending, for some of us, we believe the federal is doing a lot. But the states, the governors need to sit up in terms of investment in agriculture.
Yes. Well, let's talk about, the issue of climatology now, which is becoming a very dangerous phenomenon. The flooding, the droughts, and the rest, the Sahelian region, which parts of Nigeria, they are all facing terrible climate challenges, and experts are saying that this can adversely affect Nigeria's agricultural output. How much has the ecological funds, for example, the drive for climate change, the drive for planting more than 10, 20 million trees by Mr. President as promised in Paris some years ago, going to help to mitigate this situation?
Yeah, in terms of our policies and programs, we are sweet, we are perfect, but implementation is the problem. In terms of you would have seen the information that NIMET, the meteorological agency, had put out, talking about floods in Jigawa, Sokoto, Gombe, and so on. And it's already happening.
Yeah.
You know, even in Abuja here, you notice that there was nothing like August break for the rain. It's so unpredictable. Today, it rained throughout also. So unpredictable. But we also have an opportunity in terms of our rethinking about our approach to all this. You know, it's already affecting our food security situation. So by the time you add the issues of banditry, farmer health clashes, and so on, then our lack of power and so on, it becomes so numerous to deal with. But we have an opportunity. You know, in terms of dealing with climate change, we need to adapt agroecological practices in terms of the agriculture sector, because the funny part of it is that the agriculture sector itself contributes about 19 to 29% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to also change our practices in the agriculture sector. Our agriculture sector is so chemicalized, and those chemicals also contributing to it. So it's a whole lot of thinking around how do we change our approaches? Approach
change is one thing, but let's not forget that, you know, 80% of Nigeria's food production, according to reports, it's actually carried out by rural women. And these women, they might not know about this technology you're talking about, that you say will not just save the climate, but also make sure we get better outcome and good production. So how can we, you know, use this technology that you talk about at the rural level to help these women help Nigeria avoid the food crisis? Yeah. When you talk about technology, it sounds too advanced, but let me shock you. These are practices that our forefathers, our foremothers have been doing, you know, in terms of sustainable practices, not relying on chemicals. You know, so when you talk about agroecology, it's about ensuring that nature is protected and sustains itself. It's talking about doing sustainable practices in terms of land and soil water management practices to produce sustainably, to produce organically, than it being chemicalized. Check, we are spending close to over $250 million annually in terms of fertilizer, and they are chemical. We are also faced with issue of highly hazardous pesticides also, which has its own big problem. So what is the alternative? Yeah, the alternative is agroecology. The alternative is producing organically. The alternative is, rather than doing much of chemical, you do much of organic. You know, farmers know this. For communities where we work across Nigeria, we have supported them in providing them agroecological trainings. We work with the extension agents to provide those trainings. And
for the large-scale farmers?
No, for the smallholder.
What for the large-scale farmers, where they would, you know, need all those chemicals and till the nature agroecologically?
Yes. Now, the thing is this, transitioning to agroecology is not something overnight. People start with a combination of the practices, then gradually phase out the chemicals. Also, let me tell you that, let me shock you that even in terms of pesticides, 50% of pesticides used in Nigeria are already banned in the EU. You know,
I think that's a better place to just drop the anchor, because we're going to take some messages when we go on break. But very warm appreciation for coming on Newsnight.
We can do better as a